Hi, I'm Sean Dunn, and welcome to this episode of Origin to Ambition, the Entrepreneur's Journey. In this episode, I speak with Ashley Al-Saadi, also known as the Cold Calling Queen. Her business, the Promo Donna, has been in operation for 15 years. This is a broad-ranging discussion. I think there's a lot of interesting topics, issues, thoughts, learnings for anyone listening and anyone who is contemplating or already in small business. So I invite you to sit back and enjoy this episode of Origin to Ambition. Welcome to Origin to Ambition, the show where we explore the small business entrepreneur's journey in business. I'm your host, Sean Dunn. Let's get into it. Ashley Al-Saadi, thank you very much for joining me. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me on, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, thank you. So before we start, can you please tell us about your business, the Promo Donna, and what you do and what it's all about?
Yes, I would love to. So I guess for those of you listening that don't know who I am probably better known as the cold calling queen by many. So I am that rare and crazy breed that loves doing all the sales grunt work that most people avoid or don't have time for. And that is essentially what my business is all about. So back in 2011, when I really had found my passion or my niche being cold calling, I also really recognized that there was a gap in the market, that there was people that genuinely needed this service, especially in the business to business, high quality space. And so, 2011, 15 years ago in July, which I cannot believe it's gone that quickly, I started the Promo Donna with that outlook of I want to create high quality sales leads, sales appointments for companies around Australia. And fast forward to today, we have worked with hundreds of companies around the country, and I have a long-term team that supports me in that too.
It's one of the reasons I wanted to speak to you, because I just love that you picked this space to operate in, because there's so many people who would just be like, can't even stomach the thought of cold calling. So as in are really scared of it and uncomfortable with it. So that's why I was just fascinated. And we've been connected, through LinkedIn and whatnot for quite some time, and I've followed you, but I was so keen to talk to you because
I love that. Go on. I was going to say your reaction, Sean, is very common. Yeah. And I have to say that there's a part of me that really loves that, that I've really found something that, as you said, people either fear or they're fascinated by it. Like, oh, what makes you tick? How can you pick up the phone, time after time and not, feel that rejection and all of that. So there's a lot of questions I get as to why I love doing this, which perhaps we'll dive into.
We will.
But yeah, I do. I love it. And I think that at its core, why I love it so much is because it's something that there was that gap in the market for, there was a real genuine need. And I'll also add in here that my late father, who is someone that is such an inspiration for me, he was an entrepreneur himself. But one of the greatest pieces of advice he ever gave me was, look at what everybody else is doing and do the opposite. You'll usually achieve success. And so when I found my passion for cold calling, and as you said, recognize that everybody else didn't like doing it. I thought, this is Dad's advice. I need to follow this. And hey, 15 years later, we're still running strong. So I think, his advice is very sound.
Yeah, absolutely. On that then, let's go back in time a little bit, if you don't mind, and just take me as far back as you want to go. Just a bit about your background, and you've just given us a hint that your father was an entrepreneur. So you've probably grown up around that entrepreneurial spirit.
Yes.
Did you always think, even back when you were at school or anything like that you would be in business or run your own show type thing? Was that sort of a thing for you?
Great question. And I could answer this in so many different ways. I think, yes, I have definitely always had an entrepreneurial spirit. from right back when I think in primary school, I was that kid that bought lollies from the corner shop and then sold them out the front of my house with a margin, right? So I had that kind of sense of business already when I was very young. And so fast forward to high school, I, was very much the A-type personality. Probably no surprise to everyone that I was school captain and doing all those types of things, doing a lot of professional speaking for school. And then when I graduated, I went and studied public relations and marketing at university. Now, I'll say that I only really did that because a teacher who had worked with me a lot on public speaking and the like said, look, if you don't do PR, I don't know what you'll do, because I think this is, where you'll really find your passion. But when I studied public relations and marketing, it was so broad that I thought, I really don't know what area I'm going to graduate and get into. And so it was when I graduated that a friend of mine recommended I start working at a marketing firm. And that was when my boss at the time said, Ash, we need new leads. I said, how do you want me to generate them? And she pointed at the phone and said, go for it. And I still remember that first cold call I made. I had no idea what I was saying, but quite quickly I was, developing scripts. I knew there were certain responses that would come about, ways to build rapport, and that just in general, I really loved it. But I think to, also answer your question again, even at that firm, that marketing firm, all of the staff would always say, oh, you're going to run your own business one day. So there must have been some energy or sense of leadership I was giving off at that position too.
Yeah, understand. And yeah, absolutely agree with your point on marketing, like how broad that, marketing, so many facets to marketing. And but again, I'm still gobsmacked that you love cold calling. So I just like
And that, again, it's still something, I mean, this is a whole conversation for us too, right, Sean, that it's still such a legitimate way, I think, one of the most powerful ways to develop or generate new business for business owners today, because that age-old debate, and it has happened over the years so many times, isn't cold calling dead? It's not, you're going to be, taken out or you're going to be replaced. But I still think it always comes back to people just crave that human-to-human interaction.
I wasn't going to ask you this specifically, but you've just prompted me with that discussion. And because we were talking on the weekend at it was a business conference, and one of the speakers raised the idea of AI can't replace the human contact that people want. And I wasn't going to talk to you. I didn't have it in mind to speak to you about this, but I'd be keen to hear your thoughts on that, because, I think people are bots, AI agents and all the rest. But your experience, what do you feel? I mean, I know this is all quite new for all of us, I suppose, but
yes,
I wonder whether your business would be one that people might say, oh, well, AI will do that one day. But I'm keen to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, they definitely are saying that, but my thoughts are certainly with the person that you were talking with on the weekend, that I think that human element will never be replaced, or is irreplaceable, is probably what I'm saying. And I guess for listeners, it's been a really interesting journey for me in business because of these types of discussions, because what I saw happen was I started really strong. Everyone wanted a cold caller because, that was the sales grunt work that salespeople needed to do. So we were, a really great, outsourced function for businesses. And then what seemingly happened, so that was 2011, then there was a real boom of the digital age. So, even though we'd had Facebook and everything, Facebook marketing and advertising really went gangbusters. We had like SEO, pay-per-click, all those things. And I think that's when they started to really, on platforms like LinkedIn, say, oh, cold calling's dead. Like it's just out you should pack up your stuff and leave. And
Yeah.
I'm really glad that I still, really believed in it, because it was really interesting what happened. And ultimately it was that, yes, social media and the digital age is so powerful. I use so many of those strategies, but I had digital companies coming to me saying things like, we're generating all these opportunities and leads for people, and they can't pick up the phone to qualify them out and follow them up.
Yep.
And it also became a really good excuse for people to hide behind their computer. So, we'll send an email campaign or we'll send a Facebook campaign, but then again, we won't actually talk to people. And so that customer service was really dying out. So we saw that ebb and flow where it kind of went down a little bit, and it totally came back out the other side of, no, we need additional support with call activity. And I would say that that's exactly what's happening again with AI, was the discussion started to come about of, you'll be replaced, we'll get some bots, some AI callers. And suddenly we've had this huge peak in business because people are saying, oh no, we need humans. We need like high quality callers.
Yeah.
People don't want to speak to bots. So
No, no, people don't. And people, another thing that was a common theme I'm hearing lately was, if you suspect it's AI, it probably is. So if it doesn't feel quite right or it's inauthentic, you're probably right that it's AI, and people are not comfortable with that.
Yes. And dare I say it, because, it's interesting for me to talk on this topic. A lot of people, because all my team are local, often that's our biggest differentiator when talking about, offshoring telemarketing, for example. And you made me think of it because it's a little bit like when there's that time, the hesitation in the call, and you're like, oh, I think this is an overseas call. And again, it's always worked to our advantage. So in a very similar way, AI, I think, it's given away in the first few seconds. And if you actually do the calling yourself or have a team on the ground that's local, it will produce a lot better results, definitely.
Yeah, fascinating. That's, but as I say, that was just a thought that came to me just as we were in mid conversation there. So thanks for that. I appreciate your insights on that, because I think that's really, so topical at the moment. So that's awesome. So let's go back a little bit and say, what pushed you? Like you said, there was probably something there that you were going to be self-employed, but what was the pivotal sort of moment, if you can nail it down, that you were like, right, time to do this?
Yes. So I obviously had recognized when I was cold calling for the boss, who was running the marketing company, her clients would consistently come in saying, I need an Ash. I want a cold caller in my business. So my mind was already ticking away a little bit, thinking, I could do this for myself. And so 2011 was when I decided to jump in the deep end. It actually was, because unfortunately the marketing firm I was working for did go under. And so, it was kind of a sink or swim moment. But I have to tell listeners, if it's anything to take away, because often people say to me, how did you make your business successful? Like, how did you do this? And I always think back and think, I didn't have a plan B. So for those that are listening that might be thinking, I want to do my own business, or run my own business, I'm such a big believer in, again, jumping off that cliff and building the aeroplane on the way down, as they say a lot of entrepreneurs do. So I was, I think I had like $500 in my bank account, nothing else to show for. I remember I developed this really, crappy website. It was not much to show, but I thought I need that credibility, right? So put that up there. And then I really just used my own skill set, which was picking up the phone and calling companies saying, this is what I'm passionate about. I'd love to help you grow your business. And quite quickly, we grew. So I remember I had about 4 clients on my books that I was doing a lot of work for before I started to think, oh, I could probably use some help. And that's when I started to, look at getting a team, look at building a team around me, which was, the next part of the journey.
Well, what I love is you proved your own service by doing it.
That's right. Well, the proof's in the pudding, right? And
words out of my mouth. Yep, exactly. Yeah.
It's such a big topic, Sean, especially for someone like myself, because, again, we're kind of going off on tangents, but it's all relevant that as part of my business journey, my passion will never stop for actually getting in the trenches and doing the calls. It's who I am. I love doing cold calling. And over the years, I've trained a lot of individuals and organizations in how to effectively prospect or cold call. And I think that's the real differentiator. And I guess it's a takeaway for people listening who might be thinking of hiring someone or using a sales trainer, let's say, is that, they've got to practice what they preach. There's a lot of old school trainers, I think, out there that often say, this is what will work when it comes to cold calling. And I'm really proud that I can say, well, I generated appointments last week using these methods. So if you want to learn how to do it, I've been there, done that. So I think it's very powerful.
You said about tangents before, and I'm shocking at going off on tangents, but I'm fascinated because when I have these discussions with entrepreneurs, a lot comes out around the mindset of being an entrepreneur. And a number of people I've also spoken with on here have come from sporting backgrounds, and there's quite a crossover between high-level sports. Doesn't mean you have to represent Australia or gone to a world championship or something, but it's a very strong crossover or correlation, I find, in the mindset of those people. And I'm fascinated because I don't want to keep being repetitive, but with cold calling and the fact that you still love to do it, is there an element of almost like testing yourself or almost running a mini competition against yourself? Because you're doing something a lot of people don't like to do. And do you almost like pick up the phone and think like, can I rack up a win here? Is that sort of the mindset?
I think you've hit the nail on the head. And funnily enough, Sean, over the many years I've been doing this, I don't think someone's been able to describe it in such a good way. Like that's definitely how I would describe I go into each session. And I also love that you brought up mindset, because whenever I work with people, as I said, I train, individuals and organizations, that is like topic number one for me is if you can't master your sales mindset, you will never create the results that you want to achieve. And to give people insight, and it's also playing into the whole, do you kind of set a target for yourself? Do you, is it like a game? It really is, because I always write down on a piece of paper. So say I'm calling for a client and I want to generate 5 appointments, let's say. I will write on the piece of paper as if I've already achieved it. So I generated 5 appointments for XYZ client, and then I write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down the page. And it's almost like my brain starts to filter for the results it already has, if that makes sense. So I'm very in future tense here.
This is a really I think this is a fascinating discussion, because I remember when I first started in my very first role as a business financial advisor for a large Australian bank in their small business banking area. And these were the old, I'm giving away some age here, 26 years ago. I was quite young. I, like a lot of people, didn't fear rejection a little bit. So, and the reality was that financial advice back in those days was quite salesy. It wasn't financial advice today, right? So it was kind of sales targets, to be blunt, right? And I remember a really lovely Korean woman, and she was talking about your monthly target and saying you just have to do it. So I've gone off on a tangent, but she would say, like, if you have to generate $20,000 of revenue this month, like, you just do it.
Yeah.
just write down that you've done $20,000. And I'm like, and my mind was like, oh, I don't think I can do 5,000. Like I'm not,
Yeah.
like I couldn't even think 20,000.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, write it down
Yes.
and get to it by the last Friday of the month. And
Yes.
I'm not saying I got there immediately, but it was funny how close I started coming to it when I was already like in the mindset of, well, I'm just doing 20,000. That's what, and then it went to 30, right?
Yeah.
So you're sort of saying that you do that even to this day. You're like,
Yes.
I've generated 5 leads off cold calling,
Yeah.
and you just then
And then you do it.
you just
Right.
do it.
Because and it's such a powerful technique. I remember I had a staff member start with me, a younger woman, and she had dived into her calling and was really stuck, because again, this is great for listeners because, hey, it is part of the process, unfortunately, with cold calling.
Yep.
You'll hit those barriers, you'll get that rejection, but I think why that target and definitely it's like goal setting and putting it in that future tense. It makes the no so much easier because you think, oh no, I'm going to get the 5. I'm going to get that, money or my target.
Yeah.
And so this particular staff member came into my office and she said, Ash, I'm really struggling. Like I'm using the right approach. I've had some no's. And I said, did you write down your goal as if you've already achieved it? And she said, well, no, I haven't done that. And I said, well, that's step number 1. Like we have to do that. So she went away and literally within a matter of hours, she was back in my office saying, that was like magic. Like, how did that work for me? And I'm like, well, this is the thing. It's all about that mindset shift and focusing on things as if you've already achieved it. Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's a massive lesson for anybody who's either starting out or stuck or thinking about starting out, to have the right mindset and just, that goal is going to happen and there's no plan B.
Yes, 100%. And this is, if I would love someone who's listening to take anything away from, my story today, I would love it if, kind of that goal setting and manifestation is like a big part of it because not only am I such a big believer in it, but like that example of like the goal setting is one, great example of how I use it. The other is, I have to share this story with you because now you brought it up. I'm like, I have to share
Please do.
So I grew up on the Mornington Peninsula in Melbourne and when I established the business in 2011, we quite quickly grew and we went into a little office down that way. And I'd always had dreams of having an office in the big smoke, right? In the CBD. That was like my crown glory, right? Yeah. So I think I was probably around 26, 27 at the time because I started my business when I was about 25.
Yep.
So a couple of years in, we had this little office space. And I decided to write a letter to myself as if, again, I already had that office in the CBD. So I thought, I'm going to set myself a time frame. It's my 30th birthday. And I wrote so descriptively, I think it was something along the lines of, it's my 30th birthday and I'm walking into my office and I described everything down to even the chairs in the office, right? And I remember I put the letter away and it almost was like I forgot about it, but clearly subconsciously I did not forget about it.
Well, because you put pen to paper.
It's so powerful. And I still blows my mind when I tell this story because what happened, fast forward a few years, I was in my little office packing up everything into boxes because we were moving to our office in the CBD because we eventually got one. And do you know what weekend it was that I was packing up those boxes? My 30th birthday.
Oh.
30th birthday. I was packing up the boxes and I found the letter. And what was even more mind-blowing, despite the fact it was exactly the time frame, was I actually got a furnished office And there was these chairs in the furnished office with these kind of curled, very old school chairs. They were like the ones I described in the letter. So I always tell that story to people and say, if you want something, write it down, manifest it as if it's already achieved.
Yeah.
Because, that's just a very good example of how it worked for me.
That's a ripper story.
Yes, I love it. And do you know what, Sean? People since then have said, well, what's your next letter? Like, what have you written since your 30th? And I'm like, well, funnily enough, I've obviously still written certain things down that I really wanted to achieve, and I have. But I probably am at a point now where I do need a reset and a rewriting of the letter for what's next.
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely. Absolutely. My wife, Grace, and I do this as a regular practice. So writing down where to from here. And you don't hit all of them all the time, but, you come a lot closer than if you didn't do it, is what I would always say. You get very close. So what about early on in the business, the challenges? Because I think people, listening always learn from the challenges that other people have been through. So, what stands out to you in hindsight, like the early days of starting the business?
Definitely. Look, there's so many things. Oh my gosh, where do I start? I would say, and I always try to think, what are people going to take away from this? What's some great advice I can give? And one of the ones that stands out for me is I am very right brain. So I'm very creative. Again, I love what I do. I love sales. I love people. I am not a numbers gal, right?
Yeah.
So if you give me spreadsheets and numbers and all of that, there's nothing worse. I'm just like, no. But my husband, and I'm very grateful for the fact that we are like yin and yang, right? So he is the left brain, he's an engineer, could have been an accountant, he's just that way inclined.
Yeah.
And a year into running the Promo Donna, I thought we were flying. I was like, we are so profitable, all of this. But he said to me, I think we should do an audit on your business. And I went, why would we do that?
We're flying. Why worry about it?
I could think of nothing worse, right? And he said, no, we're going to sit down and we're going to look at all your numbers. We're talking what you're charging people, what you're paying someone, because I had a staff member at the time. What's your marketing costing you? What should you be charging for yourself? All those things. And it was such an uncomfortable process for me, but the most powerful, I think, that's ever happened in my business. Because what came out of it after, again, a year or so of being in business was it did show we were profitable, but nowhere near what I thought we were.
Yes.
So it was a real rude awakening, but it also gave me the opportunity to look at, okay, well, what should I charge my clients? What is my time worth? What should, all those key numbers. So, a really great learning for anyone starting out or running their business. It goes with that saying, numbers don't lie, and you need to know your numbers to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And as a financial advisor that works with small business owners, that is one of the things we often talk about, and probably one of the things a lot of people don't like talking about either. So I appreciate it can be a bit of a cure for insomnia sometimes, but it has to be done. So would your advice, this is always a tricky one when you start out in business, because a lot of the time you don't have the money, to have a team around you. And when I talk about team, I talk about, and this came up, Paul Veldman organised this conference on the weekend. He was actually a previous guest on this podcast, so a little shout out to Paul. But he was saying the same thing about making sure you get the right team around you in your business. To the attendees, he said, I've got Sean as my financial advisor, but you've got to have a good lawyer or a good accountant as well. But the tricky part when you're starting out is you don't have the money for these things often. And it is a lot of sweat equity, going into the starting up of the business. So what's your advice around getting those advisors and building your team?
It is a must. It definitely is a must, but you're spot on, Sean, that it is such a balancing act, I think, and that's where knowing your numbers is so powerful, because I would often, my husband almost became like my virtual CFO. So it was great that I had that sounding board to be able to say, well, I've got so many new clients coming in, and whilst it's great for me to be in the trenches doing the work, I think I need to start getting more staff on board to manage this, because this is such a great topic, actually. I remember, and I've worked with a lot of coaches and things like that over the years, and, they'll always say, as the business owner, as the entrepreneur, you should be able to work on your business, not in your business all the time.
Yeah.
And especially so with what I do. That's why I love that we do, what we do with cold calling, because so often people get so caught up in facilitating their services, delivering what they're great at, that they let their sales pipeline dry up and they go, well, where's my next lead coming from?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I don't know if that really answers it, in the sense that I definitely always looked at, where can I outsource things, or where can I bring staff on so that I'm freed up to grow the business and do what I'm best at, which is, sales, or, going out and doing training and speaking and all the things I love. So hopefully that does answer your question.
No, it does. No, it does. And Sean Dunn here, and thank you for watching this episode of Origin to Ambition, the Entrepreneur's Journey. I'm a financial advisor who specialises in working with small business entrepreneurs and high-income earning executives. We analyse cash flow, build assets, and protect those assets to help our clients do what they want, when they want, with the people that they want to do it with. So if that's of interest to you, head over to our website and book an initial discovery call, and I'd look forward to speaking with you. You just raised another, I feel like we could do about 3 episodes here at the way we're going, Ashleigh.
Happily, let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for season 3, you were talking about working on the business, not in the business, and that's cliches are a cliche for a reason, and that's because they're true. And I say it all the time. How do you make the time to? So you sort of hinted at it by talking about outsourcing certain functions. It's a discussion point I have with a lot of my actual clients, where they're like, "Oh, I just haven't got time," and that comes up a lot. I'm actually doing the work. I'm not working on the business, and so I often sort of say, you just have to lock out 2 hours every Friday morning, or whatever works for you, and just say that's my time. But how do you manage it yourself?
Yes, and I can answer this in 2 ways. The first is, I think it is so important to run a successful business is to learn to work smarter, not harder. And, the second part of the answer for me was, I actually got forced into a situation where I had to learn this. And the reason was I became a mum, right? So this is a really interesting side to my business journey, because I started it out in 2011. I wasn't even married yet. I was dating my husband at the time. And then fast forward to 2017, that's when we got married and I fell pregnant. And I find it's always a really, interesting story, because a lot of women that I know did the opposite. So they were like working corporate, then they had kids, then they started a business.
Yes.
So for me, I'd already built a really successful business up. And so the conversations that were coming at me when I fell pregnant was, so what are you going to do with the business once you have a baby? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'll have a baby.
Yeah.
I literally thought that I could just have like a crib in the office and keep working. Like it was madness. Now that in hindsight, I look back, I go, I was so delusional. Like I just had no idea. And amount of time. So when
Optimistic. We'll say you're optimistic.
optimistic, exactly. Very, very optimistic. That's right. And what happened was, had, my babies and especially with my firstborn, the amount of times that I'd have to do like Zoom, or like conference calls while I'm pushing her around the tan running track in Melbourne, things like that,
Yeah.
which no one saw, by the way. They'd always thought, oh, she's still owning it. She's still got this. But yeah, coming back to your question, it was that point that I really looked at. I need to work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
I need to have a really good team that I can handball so that they can account manage, so that I'm freed up to, again, just do what I need to do, like selling our services and then, handing it over to them. And that probably brings up, another real point that I wanted to raise in this discussion was probably one of my proudest parts of running my business and what I've achieved is my team.
Yeah.
So, when we talk about outsourcing, we talk about, surrounding yourself with great people. I mean, they are everything for me. So I have a team of 6 cold callers, and one of my biggest missions, Sean, when I started out the business was to create a long-term team, because with cold calling and, your average telemarketing firms, it's really churn and burn. Like it's high turnover. They hire backpackers, things like that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. And I did my research before starting and thought, I don't want to be that firm. I want to be, business to business, high quality, really great salespeople. And I'm proud to say, I think that's what we've become known as, because all of my team are highly experienced. We're probably what you'd say mature-aged callers, because, I don't find that the younger generations, and I, hate to generalize, but the younger generations, they really love that sexy marketing, like social media content, all of that.
Yeah.
And it's the old school salespeople that are like, no, I can still get in there and call day after day. And right now, I've got some that have been with me for 10 years plus. So Kerry's been with me for 10 years.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm coming back to proudest moment.
Yeah.
Getting that team that, has been with me this long, and they give me that ability to step back and go, okay, I'm going to work on the business today. You guys have it. This is why I'm doing the podcast today. They're on the phones. It's all kind of working like clockwork in that sense.
No, when you've had people with you for that long in the types of roles that they're doing, I think you should be congratulated. Absolutely. That's important in itself. Yeah.
Well, I'm like, I must be doing something right.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I had someone at a conference I spoke at a few weeks back who did say that. They said, tell me, how have you done it? Like, is it because you pay great commission? And I said, that was a really interesting thing for me to learn along the journey, was with salespeople, a lot of them just want a really attractive base that is going to make them feel secure, rather than, oh, you're paid, to perform, because it doesn't work for everyone. And the other thing I really bring it back to is just being understanding as a leader, that people are people. We have lives. We need flexibility. So that's always been my motto. And I know that as a mum as well. So I'm like, I try to live and give them the same opportunity that I would want. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. This is a complete presumption on my part. But I would say as well, there's a lot of power as a leader when you are willing and able to do the things that you're asking your team to do.
Yes.
Now, that doesn't mean, for example, the elite sports coach has to run on the field and actually kick the football for the team, type thing either. But I would say because you've lived it and done it and still do it, that's quite powerful.
Yes, I agree. I hadn't really thought of it that way, but I think you're spot on that I think about my conversations I have with my team every week, and we're very open and honest with each other. There'll be weeks where I'm like, you're a superstar. Like, we've achieved like 10 appointments. Fantastic. There's other days where they're really hard on themselves because they're very much like me, where we're target driven.
Yep.
And if we're not getting those like 5 appointments we've written down on the page, because you can have those weeks where you're just not getting anybody, they'll often say to me, Ash, I'm really hitting my head against the wall here. Like, what are your thoughts? Like, would you change anything up? So I love that they feel open enough to go, hey, I'm struggling. Do you have any tips or tricks, that I could employ?
Yep.
Mind you, they've been doing this for such a long time that I'm like, you should know how to do it. You should be teaching me at times. No, we have those conversations all the time.
That also comes down to clearly you've got a safe environment, for want of a better term, where people feel comfortable and safe enough to say, hey, I'm struggling with this. Like, what do we do? How can you help me? Because you've clearly created that environment, because otherwise, people would leave almost.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it comes back to, like we were saying before, that, when I started out my business, and this could be advice for people that, if you are starting out and, it's a great idea to go and look at your competitors and what they're doing right, but also what they're not doing so great.
Yes.
And so again, that's what I realized, was there was a lot of like telemarketing firms and the like that not only were, as we said, like churning and burning through staff, but I looked at the environment that they'd created for them, and it was things like, oh, you have to follow a script verbatim. You cannot question the approach, which I am like, to my team, if you think you can do it better, you do it better. Like, we want results, right? Yeah. And have some, creative flair to add to it as you see fit. But also things like, don't veer from the script. If you need to go to the toilet, you need to put up your hand to go. Like that's call center mentality.
Yeah.
That I was like, no way. Like, we are not a call center.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good entrepreneurs challenge the way it's always been done. Like, it doesn't look, if the way it's always been done is challenged, and after the challenge you say that's still the way we should do it because that works, that's fine. Yeah. But it sounds like, you're like, well, we're not doing it that way. That's not the way we roll in this business, sort of thing. And
100%. Yeah.
I think
if you can replicate, if you can replicate a great strategy or initiative, fantastic.
Yeah.
But I think, a lot of success is about like modeling behavior, right? And, even when I started out my business, and again, people ask that question of, well, how did you know, how to do that, or it was watching, entrepreneurs around me, the likes of like my dad or like the boss I'd worked for, and looking at, okay, what is working for them and what's not working, and let's try and do more of the the good stuff, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Just something you said earlier, you've got to take a shot of courage, I suppose, to say, I'm going to put someone into a task or role that I was doing, but I know that I could do something more valuable with my time, or, I'm more valuable doing something over here. That's an interesting one, because I think a lot of small business owners are used to controlling everything themselves. That's the first thing. So there's the control element and the fear of letting go of control or, releasing control. Can you talk about that? I'm sorry. I mean, this isn't even, I'm just talking out loud here.
No, I love this question.
Like your thoughts on that and how to overcome that potentially, if you are listening to this and thinking, well, I know I could do more if I wasn't doing that job over there, but I just haven't got the courage, I suppose, to let go.
Yeah. And I have to say that this is probably one of the biggest learnings for me over the years, is learning to like let go of that control, and that, I had that mentality, if I'm really honest, and, I'm going to be vulnerable here. I had that belief, which I think so many entrepreneurs and business owners do, that, I'll just do it quicker and better.
Yeah,
You
I've
know,
done that. I've
like,
done that a million times myself, Ashley.
it'll take me 5 minutes. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And that is such a crazy mentality, because in the end, it just piles up, piles up, piles up. All those things you were going to do in 5 minutes are actually taking up your whole week, and you're not getting anything done in terms of like working on the business. So yeah, I did. And I would say to this day, there's still things that I go, I need to kind of release that a bit. I've gotten better over time.
Yeah.
So yeah, number one, definitely employing staff. And as I mentioned earlier, I think having kids had a huge impact on that. So I was forced, and now
Yes.
to this day, the fact that I can go to school pickup, or, go to their assemblies in the morning because I have that flexibility. I think that's what motivates me to release that control is,
Absolutely.
no, my team are great at this. They've got this. I'm going to let it go.
Yeah.
And even talking about AI, like I know we spoke about earlier that, I don't think cold callers or salespeople will be replaced, but I am certainly all for really embracing AI, because I think people that don't will get left behind.
Yeah.
So I find that that's really helped me with some of the things. So to give people insight, every week we obviously report back to our clients on our performance, like number of calls, outcomes, the lists, how it's all going ultimately.
Yes.
And that used to take me a lot of time. And people would always say, why do you do the reports? And I'd say, well, I need to give that firsthand, feedback to clients and whatnot. AI has been incredible because I've set up my Claude so it, gets all my reports done.
Yes.
Now it's really just about me relaying that back, and it saves me like a day of work. So I would say, to answer your question in short, it would be, try to release that control, because people can definitely do it better than you, even though you don't want to admit it. And it's going to free you up to do the things you really love, whether that is, something in your business you want to do, or being there for your family and achieving that life-work balance.
Yes.
And to also, use tools that will enable you to be more freed up. And that could be AI, Claude, whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things about being self-employed that people don't potentially appreciate, is that you oftentimes do. It's quite topical with our federal budget announcement last week, but we won't go down that. We're not going there. But it's quite a theme around when you start your business. You forego a salary.
Yeah.
So I said at this conference on the weekend, I didn't earn an income for 2.5 years. In my business, and I'm not that's not unusual. Like, I'm not saying poor Sean. I'm saying that's kind of normal. That's not
100%. Yep, I resonate with that.
Yeah. So you sort of forego that, and it is hard graft getting your business up and about, and getting a client register for yourself like you've built, and a book of I presume you would have recurring customers, and clients, and it takes a lot of time. So one of the things I suppose that you should be allowed to aim for is to have that family time. And it's one of the reasons I started my business, to be perfectly honest. We had little kids at the time, and I wanted to spend more time with them. And, so when you forego an income and, 4 weeks paid holiday every year, like clockwork, and sick days and all the rest, because that's all gone out the window, and compulsory super, that's gone out the window as well, and all the rest. And, you should be able to work to those things. I think that that's a fair trade. Is that?
Yes, definitely. It's always an interesting conversation though, isn't it? Because, I always tell people who are thinking of starting a business that I was the same as you. I started mine. I wasn't married and I didn't have kids at the time, but for me, it was freedom and it was, money. It was, I'm going to be able to run a really successful business and be so flexible with my time. But that wasn't necessarily true. Like, I love, and I'm sure really understand this, that those first years, like even I would say, gosh, like first 5 years or
Yep.
so for me was really like get in the trenches, working like a dog, like,
Yep.
because I would do so many, like a lot of networking. It's something
Yep.
I absolutely love doing, and I hold it as a really pivotal growth strategy for us in those early days. Was I would do a lot of networking. So I would be up at like, breakfast meetings at 5 a.m. and
Yep.
then working on my laptop into the night and all of that. So I think for everyone listening to know that, yes, I think having your own business is such an amazing experience. And I'm proud to say that where I'm at now,
Yep.
I have that freedom to go, yeah, I'm going to go to my kids' choir singing practice on Thursday because
Yeah.
I don't have a meeting or something on. But those early days, you certainly have to keep in mind that the freedom and perhaps the money or the profit may not be there yet. But if you persevere, it certainly, will come about eventually.
I think there's a couple of really interesting things there. One is that you mentioned 5 years, and I think it's generally accepted wisdom that a lot of small businesses fail in the first 5 years. Or don't get past 5 years. May not fail, but the owner throws in the towel because it's just too hard. So that's an interesting one. And then the second part. So one of the things I talk about with clients is understanding the rules of the game.
Yes.
There's a couple of sort of sporting analogies have come out today. Sorry, it must be the people I'm associating
I love
with.
it too.
But
As a side note, to let you know, Sean, I love long distance running. So
right, okay.
kids, I did a lot of half marathons. I ran my first half marathon post kids late last year, which I was
wow.
excited about, right? But as soon as you said that about the the sport analogy with business, I completely agree, because it's like, when you're running a business, it's like running a marathon, right?
Yeah.
That, you think you've got such a long way to go, and mindset's everything, and pacing yourself, and so much connection between the two. Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you'll agree with me on this one. It's about knowing the rules of the game. So sort of, if I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I have to understand and accept the rules of the game I'm playing.
Yeah.
So for example, I think you just gave a brilliant example talking about those first 5 years, right?
Yeah.
I'm up in the morning, I'm networking, I'm working late at night on my laptop, I'm taking calls at all hours because I just have to get those sales, basically. They're the rules. They were the rules of the game that you chose to play. But if you accept them over time, you can mold the rules, if that makes sense, to work for you. But I think there's a danger in not understanding or trying to understand the rules of the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from. And I love that point you made about, but over time, you can probably learn to mold them a little more to what you want. And I think about my own business journey. Before our podcast today, I was obviously having a little bit of a reflection on, the journey. And that is one thing that I'm really proud of now. I think you get to a certain point where you are a lot more in your power as to what you will accept and what you don't. This is kind of you probably know where I'm going with this, that back in the day when I was doing those breakfast events and the working late at night and taking all the calls, there are a lot of things that I wouldn't do now just because I've set that boundary of, well, no, even clients, like I'm very proud to say I'm probably in a position now where if someone's not a fit or I just don't really want to work with them, I will stand in my power and kind of go, well, I don't think we're a fit, I don't think it's going to work. And that's only something that I think you learn over time, because the Ash that started the Promo Donna would never have said no. It would have no, we'll make it work. It's all good.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's something to be said for, not only, following the rules of the game, but then learning over time, you can play your own game though, and you don't
That's actually
have
a better way
to
to
play
put it.
someone
Yeah.
else's.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it. I'll
Yeah.
change the game now. So
Yes.
to the game I'm playing. Yeah.
That's right.
When I started my business, I kind of had an idea of the clients I wanted to work with. And I would say over time, even early, I was probably not taking clients that, even though I needed the money, probably not taking clients that didn't fit basically.
Yeah.
But that was almost more of a technical avatar, almost like, they're like this and they've got this and they've got this. Whereas I've found over the last, I would say, post-COVID, to be perfectly honest, I found through COVID, we probably slipped a little bit in terms of losing that criteria, for want of a better term. I'll say client avatar, right?
Yeah.
We probably slipped a little bit because in an effort to try and help, as you know, people locked down and a bit desperate, and we're trying to help people. So you start taking people on board that probably I wouldn't have ordinarily. And so I think our standards slipped a little bit around that. And so over the last few years, I've become quite, I still have that avatar, but I've sort of added on top like attitude,
Yes.
And I wouldn't have maybe done that previously. So I'm curious as to how long so I would say, actually we started in 2010, so similar time frame to you. So this is our 16th year. And
amazing.
I would say it's been the last 5 years where I've sort of been like, yeah, you fit the technical avatar, but like you're not a nice person. So I don't really, I'm not sure we want to work with you, right? So, and having that power to say, well, you don't have to work with me and I don't have to work with you. So how long did it take you? I'm just curious, and I'm telling my story, not because it's about me, but I think there's a similarity here.
Definitely. I think our stories are so similar that you took the words right out of my mouth. That's what I'm saying, because I think we were very similar. Like, we were very lucky that during COVID and the lockdowns, we were set up remotely.
Yeah.
And again, we had all these great opportunities because, people needed to just call, they needed to call to generate new business.
Yes.
And we were quite successful during that period. However, like you, I think I made a bit of leniency because I was like, I like to call it, you've got kind of your demographic of who you want to work with, but there's the psychographics of those clients that you kind of want to make sure you're also taking in and spot on. So I think I was a bit lenient during that time because I thought people are struggling. I want to help them out.
Yeah.
And then I would say over the last, I reckon it's probably the last like 2 to 3 years, I've really stood in my truth when it comes to who I work with, and a lot of that plays into attitude and what they're like.
Yeah.
And I think you're probably similar, Sean. I don't know about you, but again, it's all learnt from past mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for those listening, I am such a big believer, as much as I am in goal setting and manifestation, in also listening to your gut on things.
Yeah.
Because way back in the day when I started the business, there were times where my gut instinct was, I don't think this is going to be a great client to work with, mainly from like an attitude and personality point of view.
Yes.
And whenever I didn't listen to it, it was always a terrible situation. Like, it might have been they didn't pay us, or they said we want more than what we've paid for, and it would always got messy.
Yes.
So now these days, I'm really proud that I do like standing my truth. I had one only a couple of weeks ago that the writing was just on the wall.
Yeah.
The expectations were out. Like, that's a big one for listeners. Make sure your clients have great expectations. They're going to value what you do. And just some of the things that were being said were red flags of, we're never going to deliver on their expectation here.
Okay.
So I just said, I don't think we're a fit. I'd love to refer you to someone else that I know.
Yes.
And they really appreciated that. And
Yeah.
and it was a really amicable parting of ways.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I just thought to myself, my gosh, if I hadn't have done that, I
Mm.
bet you it wouldn't have gone well.
Well, I'll tell you now over the journey, because Grace is my wife's heavily involved in the business. So and even she says now, if I meet with a new prospective client and I walk away and I say, I don't feel good about that person,
Yeah.
Grace just cuts me off straight away. She goes, well, then it's no.
Yeah.
It's just no.
Yeah.
Like,
What do
yeah,
they say? Whenever in doubt, go
yeah,
with it. And
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah. There you
I
go.
love that.
Yeah, yes. So I think it's a great lesson. I think it's
Yeah,
having that alignment and fit. I think it's important if
definitely.
you're going to be self-employed. But I'm going to move forward. So I think you're going to have to come back at some point, Ashleigh, because
Well, I was going to say, yes, I'm conscious that we've spoken for ages and I've absolutely loved our conversation.
yeah,
There's so much more we could unpack. I mean,
there is.
we can even get into sales and all
I
of that.
know. No, listen,
Yeah.
listen. I'm going to put you on the spot and say, would you come back?
I would love to.
Okay,
Let's
so what
do
we'll
it.
do is we'll have to go again, but I'm going to ask a couple of little things just to sort of round out the conversation for today. If that's all right.
Perfect.
So for you and your business, what are you working on now that you'd like to see yourself in, say, 5 to 10 years time, or see the business in 5 to 10 years time?
I love this. Well, this kind of plays or ties in with our conversation around AI. So
Yeah,
again, not surely not replacing like my cold calling team or anything, but we are looking at ways in which we can really utilize it to improve the back end, so to
yeah,
speak. So, again, it's such a huge conversation, but when it comes to things like databases, all of our clients use different databases, and we've often had to look at what's our solution to integrate with all. And I think AI is an amazing tool for that type of
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
And all round, we are looking at delivering more of a holistic solution for our clients. That's what I would say, because we really are known for doing all the sales grunt work, the cold
yeah,
calling, the lead generation, but we also have a lot of internal expertise and capability in the digital space as well. So watch that space. I
yeah,
think we're going to kind of look at, again, how can we deliver a very holistic solution for people.
yeah. Excellent, excellent. I ask every guest this question.
Mm-hmm.
So here we go.
I'm scared.
No,
No.
no, no, no. Pretty straightforward one. I'll be interested to hear your answer. Is entrepreneurship for everyone?
No. And the reason I say that is I do think you have to be wired a certain way, certainly. Yeah, it's like we were discussing earlier about jumping off the cliff and building the aeroplane on the way down. I don't think everyone can do that.
Yep.
So that's my answer.
No, that's a good answer. And I always say this as well, and it's okay if it's not for everyone.
Exactly.
You don't have to be an entrepreneur. It's not a judgmental sort of point of view. It's more. I'm always curious to hear the answer.
That's right. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I have so many friends that are so successful in corporate.
Yep.
My husband is a successful engineer, in a large firm. And I'll say to that I actually have times where I think, God, I wish I could work in that type of environment. That would be really fun, right? But it's not me.
Yeah.
I can't. I have to work for myself. It's just the way I'm built. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll finish off with this one. If you could sum up in a sentence or two your entrepreneurial journey thus far, what would you say?
Oh, my God. That is a really tough one. Actually, do you know what I would say? Is if anyone has read The E-Myth
Yep.
by Michael Gerber, have you read it?
Yep.
Yep. That's my journey.
Gotcha.
So I was certainly the entrepreneur that had that entrepreneurial seizure, as they call it, and was like, I'm amazing at cold calling. I could do this for myself. And then I progressed to the manager side where I'm managing people going, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Right. And it's that whole journey. So yeah, that's how I would answer it is I'm certainly living the E-myth. Definitely.
Good. This is not the first time that book has been raised by one of my guests, so I'm sure some people listening will have gone out to buy the book now.
Yeah,
so anyway,
highly recommend.
Yeah, it is highly recommended. Absolutely. Ashley Al-Saadi, I really appreciate the conversation today. I do feel like this has been one of those ones I could still keep going, but we'll save it for the next one if that's all right with you. But I really appreciate your time. It's been really fascinating and interesting.
You too. Thanks so much for having me. And as you said, we'll roll it out in the next one. Can't wait for the next episode.
We will dig into all things sales and marketing, I think, next time around.
Done. What I love.
Thank you, Ashleigh.
Okay, thanks, Sean.
And that's all for this episode of Origin to Ambition. Thanks for tuning in. To make sure you don't miss our next conversation, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen in. For more information, you can visit us at dominiumcapital.com.au, and we'll see you next time.